Welcome to the Hudson Show. Coming up, you'll never guess what happened to my old toilet seat.
And how long can you fly a plane with a loose tool lodged in the engine?
All that and more on the way next. Allie, did you have a good weekend?
I did.
Did you do anything of note?
I had a pretty fun weekend. I definitely started off strong with a fun movie night that I had with two of my cousins. We had a good time with that on Friday. Stayed up late watching a couple movies, and then on Sunday, I played pickleball, which is always a good time.
Yeah, I think, I guess maybe people may not know this, but it might be more noteworthy if you want to tell us the days you don't play pickleball at this point than the days that you do. But that sounds like a nice weekend.
Yeah, it was good.
You had a fun time.
How was your weekend?
Oh, it was good. Let me give you a timeline.
Oh, no.
Friday, stayed up late to watch the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight, which that'll get its own day in court here on the show. But Saturday was a fun day. I got most of my Christmas decorations up outside.
Nice.
The inside is still, let's just say there's still Halloween stuff inside. But outside, it at least it's not complete, but it's been worked on. And I was excited. I thought I was going to be the first in the neighborhood. I saw that there's going around this weekend, there's 2 houses nearby that beat me. And then there's several houses, if you go to like different neighborhoods, where they're like the whole neighborhood's already done.
Oh my goodness.
And like really done.
Yeah.
So they care about it there. In my neighborhood, there's 3 of us. And I also got a new toilet seat on Saturday.
Okay.
That's exciting. Ask me what happened to the old toilet seat.
Okay, what happened to the old toilet seat?
It burned.
Burned?
Yes.
How did that happen?
I mean, I didn't replace it because it got burned.
Oh.
I burned it because it was garbage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it needed replaced.
I had to replace the toilet seat, and the old one is flammable. So what better way to remove it than by setting it on fire? Save the garbage people some trouble.
Yes.
And then yesterday, football, stuff like that.
Yep.
So, I went to a place called Huey Magoo's. Have you ever heard of Huey Magoo's?
I don't think I have.
Huey Magoo's, I believe it's relatively new around here.
Okay.
It is like Raising Cane's if Raising Cane's was better.
Oh.
It's literally like the same thing. Like they only have chicken tenders and then sandwiches, but they also have salad. So there's that. They have more sauce choices, and the chicken tenders are actually good on their own. I'll admit, Raising Cane's has better sauce, Cane's sauce, and their honey mustard. I don't know if there's better honey mustard than Cane's honey mustard. So they do have Huey Magoo's beat in that regard, but everything else, like the actual chicken, which is really, that's what you go for, right?
Right.
Huey Magoo's better than Raising Cane's.
Oh, okay.
So
I might have to give this a try, but I will say Cane's is one of my favorites.
Cane's is good. Imagine if it was better. That's Huey Magoo's. Not a sponsor of the Hudson Show, because we don't do that. We are doing a food fight. We have the brand new 7-Up Shirley Temple that's out for the holiday season. And neither of us are Shirley Temple aficionados, so this is going to be a whole new experience for us. I asked what differentiates it from 7-Up, Cherry 7-Up. That's already a thing, right? It says pomegranate and cherry soda, naturally and artificially flavored. So pomegranate could be the differentiating factor, even though I don't know if that makes it a traditional Shirley Temple or not. But I think we should just go ahead and give it a try.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing. I'll give the... that's very subtle.
Yeah.
It's not as in your face as many other sodas. Some say pop, I say soda is.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I think it tastes quite good.
This feels like a mature soda.
Yep.
Doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Like children wouldn't be clamoring for this, I don't think.
It's a more complicated flavor.
Yeah, or just not as there as much. Not quite.
Not super strong. Or,
not incredibly sugary, which I guess adds up. I don't know how much calories are in a normal thing of soda, but this has 170 per 12 ounces. That feels low to me.
Yeah.
I feel like Mountain Dew is probably like 350, like twice this.
Yeah, Mountain Dew is probably one of the worst. But I would say 7-Up, like Sprite, any of those type of what they call like the light colored sodas, those always do have lower calories. They also don't have caffeine in them.
Yeah.
So if you want to call them healthier soda, they could probably be considered that. So I'm not surprised that it is kind of a lower calorie count.
Now, I feel like there's no such thing as healthier soda.
Yeah, that's why I kind of put the quotation marks on it, because it's like it's not really like a thing. But if you want to say that there's a healthier option, maybe it is the lighter sodas.
Now, another question is, does drinking this make you feel like the holidays? Because it's clearly branded in such a way.
Yeah, it's got the little present on the 7-Up logo.
Yeah, and it feels like it's really playing on the ornaments and stuff.
Yeah.
Sparkles and things of that nature.
I like it. I like the packaging for sure. Honestly, I kind of thought 7-Up was done. I thought it was gone. I thought Starry kind of replaced it.
Yeah, Starry, and it feels like it's bringing up the rear in the lemon lime soda category.
Yeah.
But maybe this is their way of getting back in on things.
I wouldn't mind if they just came back as 7-Up Shirley Temple.
Yeah. I don't need regular 7-Up.
Sorry.
And I don't need you know what this is? Like when you have Thanksgiving dinner, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people will put out like a thing of ginger ale and then cranberry juice, and you're supposed to mix them. This saves you that trouble.
Yeah.
And it's just as viable an option as the cherry ginger ale or whatever that is. So,
right.
Or cranberry ginger ale. This is along those lines. This could get the job done.
Could get the job done. It's probably not something I'm going to choose to drink regularly. But if I, was having to get together during the holidays, this would be perfect.
It would be a good option.
Yeah.
For the grown-ups.
Yeah.
The mature grown-ups that don't need too much sugar in their lives. One of my friends over the weekend said something that I couldn't relate to the specific example she gave, but I could relate to the sentiment. What she said was, those times when you're like, you need to shower, but you're so comfortable doing like whatever else you're doing, you're binging Netflix or, whatever it is that you're doing around the house, that you're like, I don't want to get up and get in the shower. But then you get up when you finally do bring yourself to get in the shower. You're like, I don't want to get out because it feels so good.
Feels so good.
I never have that problem because I would always be in the shower if I could. Like, you don't need to convince me. I've never put off anything or never put off showering because there was something else I was doing that was more fun.
Yeah.
Showering is as good as it gets to me. But I get the idea of where you're focused on doing one thing or you're just comfortable doing one thing. And so it prevents you, like just the idea, like kind of your laziness or your comfort that you're in at the moment prevents you from doing something that might be even better. You're missing out. Maybe for a lot of people, it's just like, it's not the shower, but it's like, well, I'm so comfortable watching movies here at home. Why would I go out and see my friends or, something like that? But it can take on more serious permutations than that too. And I think that's what I can relate to of you're comfortable living life the way you are, doing things the way you are. You feel like, I don't know if I really want to change things up because I'm kind of like okay with how they are now. But that mindset prevents you from experiencing things that could be even better. Many of us maybe are doing that with God where you think, well, things are going okay now. Like, I don't know if I want to shake things up. I don't know if I really want to go through all of that. But if you actually do, if you get up off the couch and do things, proverbially, and do things a little differently, have a relationship with Jesus, you'll find that you are missing out on something much better this entire time because you were comfortable with the way things were before. God wants to present you with that feeling of getting in the shower and realizing like, oh, why did I put this off? It feels so good to be in here. God wants to give that to you, a whole new way to look at life and realize that the stuff you were doing before was not nearly as important and not nearly as exhilarating as what you could be doing in the future with Jesus. If you want to experience that, start talking to him, get up off the couch and say, hey, Jesus, I'm looking for things to change. I'm ready to shake things up, and he'll do it with you. You want to know more? RadioU.com/free gift. What was supposed to be the biggest event over the weekend was Friday night. Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson live on Netflix from AT&T Stadium in Texas. And it was an event, but it did not live up to the billing whatsoever. I don't think anybody who watched that fight, who tried to watch the fight, walked away feeling like they got, even though, the price of admission was a Netflix subscription, you still feel like you didn't get your money's worth.
Yeah, it was definitely disappointing, whether it comes to the fight itself or the technical difficulties that Netflix always seems to have whenever they do live events. It just overall fell pretty flat.
Yes, that was one of the big complaints, first of all, was that it was more of an issue, at least for me, leading up to the actual main event and up to the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. Once they started fighting, I don't remember, the street, Netflix's stream dying or the buffering being as much of a major issue. But leading up to the fight, during some of the undercard fights and the other excitement leading up to it, it was definitely not inspiring a lot of confidence that everything kept buffering and shutting down. Then you get to the actual fight, which was, it definitely felt fake. It felt like we all got lied to a little bit. And I don't think that Mike Tyson went out there knowing that he was going to look so pathetic as he did. Like some of the stuff he said afterwards, like I think it meant a lot to him to get out there and do this one more time. But I think everybody going into the fight knew that like there's no shot that Mike Tyson is knocking out Jake Paul. Anybody who was involved in the training and leading up to it would have known. Once you got out, one thing I did hear between the time that we talked about it here on the show and then when the actual fight happened was that, and I don't know this much about boxing.
Yeah.
But the rules for this fight were different. First of all, it was only 2-minute rounds, which are much shorter. Secondly, though, the gloves were much heavier, which means they were much more padding in the gloves, which means that even if Mike Tyson could have delivered like a real knockout punch, there's so much more padding to make that blow not as impactful to Jake Paul, and it really decreased the odds of either one of them getting a knockout.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson he won the first 2 rounds, I think, by the scorecard, and then the next subsequent 6 or whatever, Jake Paul definitely dominated because by that point, Mike Tyson looked out of energy.
Right. Which I know we talked about on Friday when we were kind of previewing this fight. We were thinking, well, if Tyson can somehow get that knockout punch early on, this fight's over, obviously. But if it's a fight that's going to go several rounds, we gave the advantage to Jake Paul because he's just the younger guy. He's got more stamina. So that seems to be kind of what happened. But I didn't know the thing about the padding and the gloves and anything like that. Like we said on Friday, neither of us are boxing fans. So we don't know a lot about boxing, but it just seemed like that was going to be how it was going to go. Either Tyson's going to get a knockout early on and the fight's over, or this fight's going long and that advantage goes to Jake Paul. Yeah,
it was disappointing. Like you said, we're not boxing fans. This did not turn me into a boxing fan. I was like, this just feels staged. And what's sad was like the way it played out too. I was thinking, at least if it's staged, they're going to try to add some drama to it. Like each one of them is going to get knocked down at some point. There was none of that. It was really just entirely disappointing, boring. If it wasn't the 2 names involved, it was boring. It was not interesting. The fight before, where it did have the buffering issues, was a women's boxing match between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano that also went the distance. Amanda Serrano wound up getting her eye busted open.
Yeah.
Many boxing experts say she should have won, even though she lost by a judge's decision. That was much more thrilling, much more exciting. Maybe because those were both actual boxers that, like still box. Yeah. Even though they're not Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. So that did more to turn me into a boxing fan than anything. But yeah, it was just like, it just wasn't exciting. Even the entrances, like Jake Paul comes out playing In the Air Tonight. And I feel like at that point we should have known. We should have just been like, this is all a work right here.
This is not going well. Yeah. But I do have one question for you, Hudson.
Yeah.
Who is Jake Paul going to fight next?
Nobody of consequence. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Nobody it's going to be a name and we're all going to be like, oh, maybe this is it. It's not going to be it. We need to stop. We need to learn our lesson. We're getting to the time of year, to me, where you're much more likely to spend the night at home than you are out and about doing stuff. It's just something about the winter season. I know some people have holiday parties, but more or less, you just want to sit at home and curl up in a blanket or something like that. So let me ask you this. Imagine the perfect night at home, the perfect night in. Walk me through that.
Okay,
for
me, let me see. The perfect night at home. I think one of the things I love to do for a perfect night at home is I actually love to make like a home cooked meal.
Okay.
Because that just makes me feel good inside. You know, like you fed your body in a way that's good and not filled it with like junk food or fast food or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that always just makes me feel better.
And if you cook, it does feel like you actually accomplished something.
Yeah, it makes you feel productive. Or even if you just like want to throw something in a slow cooker that's, you know, cooking for a few hours and then eat that later so you're not, you know, spending a whole bunch of time cooking. But yeah, I definitely love to do that where I just like have something that I actually made that makes me feel good and doesn't make me feel like, oh, you know, bad later.
Yeah.
You know, maybe get cozy on the couch, watch one of my favorite shows or movies, you know, and yeah, just have a good time at home.
I think that all sounds good. I have here a survey that is like the scientific or like the average person's perfect night at home. It starts by getting home from work by 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
So you got to be home by 5:30. Then immediately when you get back to the house, you take a precisely 19-minute long shower.
19-minute long, okay.
I think we've covered this today, but I think for me, it'll be longer than that.
Yeah, same here.
I mean, why put a limit on it, in fact? Then there's nothing mentioned of dinner. Instead, you scarf down copious snacks. Their words, not mine.
Okay.
And finish it off by kicking back on the couch with your feet up no later than 6:42 p.m.
That's so
and then do
specific.
nothing else. Nothing else. 6:42. Listen, I go to bed, I think, earlier than the average person because I have to get up much earlier than the average person. But going from 6:42 to whenever I go to bed, like 9, 10 o'clock, without doing anything except watching anything from that point on, that does feel like I did not, like that doesn't sound perfect to me because I feel like I was too lazy.
Yeah. Maybe on like a Friday night, I would do something like that where I would just, you know, eat some snacks and like kick back and watch something until I go to bed. But if it's another type of night, for the most part, when I'm getting home, I'm doing a workout, then making food, and then maybe watching something, you know, taking a shower, obviously, after I work out, but then getting ready for bed pretty early. And I know I go to bed a lot earlier than you, so
Yeah.
I end my night pretty quickly.
I think for me, what's missing here is I'm probably starting watching something later. More often than not, it's probably football. If it's a perfect night at home, it's football and it's a good game. It's not like Colts versus Raiders or something. Like it's a good game. And in the meantime, though, I'm definitely getting like food from somewhere out. If it's a perfect night at home, I'm getting somewhere out that's good, not like fast food, but somewhere out that's good. That's a perfect night to me.
Yeah.
And definitely that shower in there somewhere. And maybe I find time to do something semi-productive. Like, you know what? If you have to include a chore, you know what mine is?
What?
Laundry.
Yeah.
Folding laundry.
Yeah.
That's my fun chore.
Okay.
It doesn't count. We're going to need a verdict from you here at 8772 RadioU in this court case between two chicken chains. Your plaintiff, your accuser, KFC, has filed a lawsuit against Church's Texas Chicken, alleging that Church's has used the phrase original recipe in advertisements that infringe on KFC's long-standing trademark. KFC claims it used the term since 1972 to describe its signature chicken recipe, and the Church's new ads, which launched in late September, that say, quote, our original recipe is back, could confuse customers and devalue KFC's brand. KFC has requested monetary damages, unspecified, and a court order to prevent Church's from using the phrase going forward. Should Church's Chicken be found guilty of improperly using KFC's slogan? You be the judge at 8772 RadioU. You know, I've never been to Church's.
I haven't either.
I've tried, and I tried once, and they were like, we're not really serving people right now.
What?
Yeah, I was like, well, I mean, we're open, but we can't give you anything. One time I went through the drive-thru, so that was my only experience with churches.
That's so strange. We're not really serving. What do you mean we're not really serving?
They just didn't want to give anybody anything. I don't know. I'm sure there was reasons.
So random.
But
why wouldn't you just say we're not serving people right now?
Yeah, just say we're closed temporarily.
Why not?
Something.
We're not really serving people. Like, what?
Anyways, don't let that color your opinion of churches' chicken in this lawsuit, though. Should they be able to say our original recipe is back without ruffling the feathers, so to speak, of KFC? 877-2-RadioU. You be the judges, for you to decide. We heard from many, I would assume, amateur lawyers chiming in. Andrea says, was I going to be confused that churches suddenly started selling garbage chicken like KFC?
Ooh.
Ouch. Andrea. Going right after KFC like that. Lisa says, is the phrase trademarked? Don't a lot of places use the phrase original recipe?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Doesn't Chick-fil-A use something about original chicken sandwich or something? I think
that any place, I don't know if you can just trademark simply original recipe.
Yeah.
Because first of all, many places I'm sure already use that. It just may not be in reference to fried chicken. Mm-hmm. But secondly, any place that has a recipe and then changes and then goes back to another recipe, that first recipe, that is the original recipe. It's just technically what it is.
Yeah.
I guess they don't even have to change. If they make a recipe and then never change from it, that's also the original recipe.
Right.
So I don't know if you can actually, those two words alone can be trademarked.
It's the apt description of the recipe.
Right. Chad says, no, KFC's slogan, original recipe of 13 herbs and spices. Churches doesn't elaborate on how many spices they use, so no basis for a lawsuit. Church's chicken not guilty, according to Chad.
Chad sounds like a real lawyer.
Yeah, he put a pretty good argument out there.
Yeah.
He definitely knew how to phrase it right. Yeah. Max says, I have to agree with KFC. It is clearly their trademark. But it seems that Max is in the minority here, I would say.
I feel like we got a pretty split crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are saying KFC, some people saying churches. So, yeah.
Suzanne says that KFC is the winner. Everyone knows KFC has the original recipe. Well, if everyone knows, then that actually flies in the face of the lawsuit. Now I'm getting lawyerly, because if everyone knows them, nobody will be confused either way.
Yeah, that's true.
Lindsay says KFC is probably just desperate to save themselves from bankruptcy. So I'm going to say they don't even have a chicken leg to stand on. It's like these celebrities who trademark a word and then say you can't say that word without paying royalties.
Yeah.
That the Gene Simmons approach to things. We think we also heard from Carlos, who says original recipe, chicken, grease, and salt.
Ooh.
I don't even know. Are you criticizing churches or KFC or both?
Yeah. Which one does that go for? Yeah, or is it both?
Do we have a consensus here, or do we have a hung jury?
I think we have a hung jury, right? Like, there's several people that are coming to KFC's defense and several people that are like, no, KFC, you don't have the trademark for this.
That means that we get to make an executive decision.
Ooh.
And so we have to agree.
But what if... Sorry, go ahead.
No, what do you think?
But what if we're also not?
Well, let's sort it out. Go ahead. Say your opinion.
Oh,
you be the judge, Ellie.
I don't know which one I agree with more. I feel like it's kind of ridiculous that KFC is suing churches for this. I feel like it's a bit much.
I think I'm with you. I think churches should be able to get away with it.
Yeah.
What do they have going? Like, you think about how KFC is in their flop era right now. Churches is even like, they're the lesser version of KFC for all we know.
Right. They don't have really a corner on the market.
Yeah.
As any more than KFC would, but definitely not as popular as KFC.
And neither of them can even come close to Popeyes. So what are we even talking about? How much football did you watch over the weekend?
A decent amount.
Mostly college, mostly NFL.
Mostly college.
Okay, next question. How many SEC teams in the playoff can you tolerate out of 12?
Probably 5.
5?
That would be the most.
Because I'm looking at it after this weekend, and I feel like not only is 6 realistic, I'm not 100% sure how they could avoid putting 6 in. Right now in the SEC, you have 6 teams that either have, for Texas, 1 loss, and then the next 5 all have 2. Mm-hmm. Texas plays Texas A&M. If Texas A&M wins, you have 6 teams all with 2 losses. It would have to take an upset for any of the other teams that have 2 losses to wind up with 3. So realistically, how are we going to differentiate? Most of those 6 2-loss teams have all beaten each other. Mm-hmm. How are we going to differentiate? How is the selection committee going to differentiate, or do they even care?
Well, okay, here's the thing of why I would say that it's not likely that you would see 6 teams from the SEC making it in. Mm-hmm. First of all, we've got the automatic bids, so that guarantees you're seeing teams from all the conferences that are represented.
That's 4, yeah.
So
that aren't SEC.
Yeah, but then you're also you're going to see one of the teams being from the group of 5, so like the smaller conferences, and then also this doesn't account for like the Big Ten having some other bigger teams that will not be the Big Ten champion getting that automatic bid, or maybe a team from the ACC. So, it's just like, it doesn't account for the fact that there's other teams in other conferences that are going to be considered good that may have 2 or less losses that are not going to be conference champions. It's not just going to be the SEC, just, these are the only good teams in football.
I don't know about that. Look, if Indiana loses to Ohio State, I'm sure you as an Ohio State fan will predict that. Who's going to get in, Indiana or any of the 2-loss SEC teams?
I don't know, but I would hope that a 1-loss Indiana would get over several of the 2-loss teams that are available.
I don't know. What about, Penn State, right, shouldn't lose. Notre Dame could easily lose to, I don't know about easily, Army. But I feel like you have the 4 non-SEC conference champions that have to get in, and then 2 other teams from the Big Ten and Notre Dame. So what is that? That's still leaving a lot of SEC teams in.
It's still leaving
And how do we decide who to leave out from the SEC?
It's going to be a tough one. I definitely don't want to be on the committee making this decision. Even for this week, what are they going to do coming out on Tuesday? What is it going to look like? I have no idea. But yeah, it's a complicated mess for sure. But I would really hope that they're not putting half the playoff teams being SEC. That's just ridiculous. I guess that would really only leave
like 1 or 2 at-large spots for, again, Notre Dame is almost assured, and Penn State, because they're just not going to lose. And obviously Ohio State and Oregon play each other, but I don't think that beating each other is going to I don't know. I think we're going to get way more SEC teams than you actually think is realistic.
Well, I don't know, because there's so many teams that are just like budding right at the point of potentially being considered by the committee currently. So I feel like they're kind of just stacking them all there right now, and kind of that middle range of 10 to 15 to figure out what are you going to do until we end the season. And it's just kind of almost like a placeholder for now.
I think that's what they were thinking at first. They're like, we'll just put all these SEC teams near the top and they'll play it out so that we can eliminate some. But they've beaten each other all in a way where it's like you can't eliminate any of them because they all have very similar resumes.
Well, they got to lie in the bed they made, I guess.
Yeah. It's time for our Monday tradition. The box office breakdown, looking at what made money and what did not in theaters over the weekend. Your number 1 movie at the box office, not much of a shock. Red One, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Chris Evans, the Christmas movie with polar bears and some kind of weird abominable snowman thing. It got number 1 at the box office, making just shy of $35 million. That was, I think that's okay for what they were expecting, but also maybe not as okay when you consider it cost $250 million to make.
Yikes.
But Amazon, it looks like they're their big wigs are saying they feel like that's going to be just fine, because once it hits Amazon Prime Video, it will more than make up for what it costs to make, in their opinion.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know about that, especially because it's not coming this Christmas season. But we'll see if people are anxious to watch it next Christmas. Number 2 at the box office was Venom: The Last Dance. That made another $7 million. And rounding out the top 3, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, making another $5 million in North America. Let us know what you watched at 8772 Radio U. Allie, what have you seen lately?
So I did get to go see Heretic. That came out last weekend, actually.
Yes, that was number 4 at the box office.
Hugh Grant. It's a psychological thriller. Horror elements for sure, but I would consider it more thriller-esque.
More like edge of your seat, not like wincing in disgust.
Definitely edge of your seat, because I don't want to give anything away, but Hugh Grant is absolutely magnetic in it. Like, you cannot look away from him. And even at points where I feel like the plot slows down a little bit, it still is a great film because Hugh Grant, you can't not watch what he's doing on screen and like listen to what he's saying because it's just so well done.
Yeah.
He does an amazing job. So I really liked it.
Approval of Heretic for Allie. I saw recently Back to the Future once again. I watched Back to the Future. Some takeaways from it. Isn't it crazy? Christopher Lloyd plays a doc, right, in the movie?
Yeah.
You forget in the first one, you don't see him very much at all.
Right. He doesn't come in until like halfway through the movie.
He only has a few actual scenes. But that was what? Back in the 1980s, they made Back to the Future. And he looks old then. And it's 40 years later now. And he only looks slightly older, but he's still going strong.
Yeah. It's probably the, like dyed white hair that they gave him, the crazy scientist look.
Yeah, they made him look old.
Yeah, they made him look like a crazy mad scientist for sure in that film. But if you watch films from like similar time that were made similar time that he's in, he doesn't look like that.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody's covered the weirdness of, Michael J. Fox, McFly, going back and having to eschew his mother's advances.
Yeah.
And she, of course, doesn't know, but that is very strange. And I don't know. I don't know if the nostalgia would be the same because, right, the thing you always think about with movies like that is they went back 30 years in time from the time. So if we did this movie now, it would be the mid 90s.
Yeah.
Would that feel the same now? I guess we don't know because we weren't alive back in the 80s when they went back to the 50s. You know what I'm saying? It feels like time has passed much less in the last 30 years than it did. Like, things changed so much between the 50s and 80s. Since the 90s and now, how much has changed?
Well, I mean,
we have phones.
A decent amount has changed as far as like computers, internet, that type of stuff that have advanced so much. Not that they didn't exist back then, but they've advanced. And so, I don't know how different it would feel, but definitely if you are used to watching Netflix while you're in your free time, you'd probably be a little bit more bored.
Yeah. But I just don't, what I guess I mean is I don't know if there'd be the culture shock kind of thing that there would be if you went from the 80s to the 50s.
Yeah.
I don't know if the world has changed that much.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Over the weekend, Coke dropped a new ad that has caused a lot of controversy. The reason that it's caused a lot of controversy is because it is a remake of a famous ad that came out back in the 90s. And they used generative AI to make a new version of this ad. So it is like the images in the ad are entirely AI generated.
Oh.
Based off of what they did 30 years ago. And people are criticizing it for looking like the original, but not nearly as good because it's AI.
Yeah, when I watch it, immediately my thought is it's like, because the AI always generates like the most extreme reactions. So like the people are smiling a little too much, or they're crying a little too much whenever AI generates an image or a video. And that's when I watch that, I'm like, why are they smiling so wide?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a little too
They're too excited for Coca-Cola.
Yeah, it's like I am always excited for Coca-Cola. I'm not going to lie. I am a Coke drinker. But those faces that the AI models make is like, is obviously fake.
Yeah, it's too much. It's over the top. I don't know why. What is the point of that? I guess to literally generate controversy so that we'll talk about this because they could have done a better ad.
Yeah.
If they actually got people to do it. I definitely think that.
Absolutely.
Now go ahead.
I know that a lot of these companies have been remaking the nostalgic ads, or even just replaying the ads that they used to play on the television or whatever. And they've brought a lot of them back, but it's kind of weird to me that you would not just bring back the old ad and instead remake it with AI.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I think it has to be just they're playing us. Yeah. They're like, see, we know how to get you talking about Coke. We'll just use AI to do it. So, but the funny thing is, like, how much does anybody want to actually argue about an ad? Like, it's a commercial. Yeah. Like, why does anybody have emotional attachments to these things?
It's nostalgic, though. Like, when we think about our childhood, we think about watching those ads with the polar bears and the Christmas and all of that stuff.
And you are right, because I do sometimes, like, especially around the holidays, put on, like, playlists of old Christmas ads that I remember from growing up.
Yeah.
And so
it makes you feel good inside.
Yeah. But
and this crushes it.
Yeah, this doesn't. This makes me want to drink Pepsi, is what it does.
I don't know about that.
Sorry, as we head into the holiday travel season, to have to share this with you because it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence if you're about to get on a plane. A Qantas flight, or a Qantas plane, I should say, Qantas, an Australian airline, was found to have flown about 300 hours with a forgotten tool lodged in one of its engines. That is 300 hours. Think about how many trips that would be. They do say that once this was discovered, and by the way, this flight was these flights were early in 2024, and now they are only just now reporting on this, but actually late in 2023, I should say. But there was no damage found to the engine. However, the tool obviously is not salvageable at this point. So I don't know if that really makes you feel all that great. I mean, it was literally flying from like Los Angeles to Australia, back and forth with a discarded tool just left inside one of its engines.
Yikes.
That's not great. Or is it? Does it tell you how resilient the engines in these planes are, that there could be a random tool just floating around in there and the engine it's no worse for the wear? You wouldn't even know. It made it 300 hours, and who knows how many more hours it would have made it if nobody happened to check and take a look at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in the picture, it looks like it literally just melted into the side of the engine. So I don't know. Yeah, it just seems like I don't know how they would even fix this at this point. At this point, it's been going so long. Like, what do you even need to change?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like if you were going to criticize. You would say, well, they need to obviously be doing more frequent inspections.
Yeah.
Because if it can go 300 hours of flight time without this being discovered, either they're not inspecting enough or they weren't looking closely when they did inspect and they were just checking off the boxes.
Yeah.
But, if that's your argument, don't you kind of feel like, are you are you willing to have more delays on planes? Don't we already feel like we sit around enough at the airport?
That's
now you're going to make it even take longer.
Yeah, but I mean...
just for our safety.
Yeah, I was going to say, but it's worth your life that they're doing these checks and everything. So, they want to make sure it's safe for the plane to fly. So I guess I'm not upset with that.
I think the people that were inspecting this thing, I think they were just being efficient. They might have seen that in there and they're like, well, it's not affecting anything. So we'll just give it a pass rather than put everybody. They were like, I don't want to ruin somebody's day by marking this plane as, needing maintenance when it realistically is going to be fine. And think about all these people that are trying to fly from LA to Australia. We don't want to ruin their day. A slight delay on a flight like that could derail a whole vacation.
I wonder what could happen if the plane, crashed or something, or the engine blew up. What would they be thinking then?
They're thinking, well, at least they died happy.
At least the flight was on time.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for listening to The Hudson Show. Please don't forget to rate and review the podcast.